I was 35 years old working as a software engineer at a major tech company in Seattle. Life seemed perfect with my beautiful wife, Amanda. We had been married for 3 years, and I felt lucky every day. She was stunning, supportive, and my parents adored her. Everything was falling into place until one day when my manager called an emergency meeting. Budget cuts, layoffs, my position eliminated. I was shocked but told myself it was temporary. My family would stand by me. Before I continue this heartbreaking story, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever experienced betrayal from loved ones during your darkest moments. My life before the crisis had been everything I had worked for. As a senior software engineer, I earned $120,000 annually at TechVision, one of Seattle's fastest-growing companies. Amanda and I lived in a modern apartment downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. We met at a company party where she was working as a fashion designer for the event. Her confidence and creativity captivated me from the first moment. After 3 years of marriage, things were comfortable and happy. Amanda continued her fashion design career working for a boutique studio that created custom pieces for wealthy clients. Her income was less predictable than mine. But between the two of us, we lived very well. My parents, William and Susan, lived 2 hours away in the suburbs. Dad had worked 30 years at the same manufacturing company, retiring as a plant manager. Mom ran a successful local bakery. They were always proud of my achievements, telling everyone about their son, the tech genius. At family gatherings, Dad would put his arm around my shoulders and say, "Travis made it out of our small town and into the big leagues." Their approval meant everything to me. Amanda and I had started talking about buying a house in one of Seattle's nicer neighborhoods. We were even discussing having our first child within the next year. The future seemed bright and certain. That Tuesday started like any other day. I woke at 6:30, went for my usual morning run along the waterfront, and made coffee while checking emails. Amanda kissed me goodbye as she left for a client meeting. "See you tonight." "Love you," she said casually, not knowing everything would change that day. At work, I was deep into coding when my calendar pinged with an urgent meeting request from my manager, Brian. The subject line simply read, "Important discussion. HR. Present." My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was probably about the new project I had been hoping to lead. The meeting room was cold and sterile. Brian sat next to Jessica from HR, both with grim expressions. "Travis." I will cut to the chase. Brian started, unable to meet my eyes. "The company is implementing major workforce reductions. Your position has been eliminated effective immediately." I sat there stunned as Jessica explained severance packages and exit procedures in a detached, rehearsed voice. 2 weeks' pay for every year worked. Insurance coverage for 1 month. Return of company property today. "But I just completed the Anderson project ahead of schedule," I protested. "The client specifically praised my work." Brian shrugged uncomfortably. "This is not a performance issue, Travis. It is purely financial. The decisions came from corporate." Within an hour, I was packing my belongings into a cardboard box while coworkers awkwardly avoided eye contact. People I had worked alongside for years suddenly found their computer screens fascinating whenever I looked their way. Only Raj, my closest work friend, stopped by to offer help and exchange phone numbers. "This is temporary, man," Raj assured me. "With your skills, you will have another job in no time." I drove home in a daze, the box of desk items sitting on my passenger seat like an unwelcome visitor. It was only 2 in the afternoon. Amanda would not expect me for hours. I rehearsed what I would say to her, trying to sound confident despite the hollow feeling in my chest. When I entered our apartment, I heard Amanda's laughter from the bedroom. She was home early too. I called out, and her laugh cut short. She appeared in the hallway, clearly surprised to see me. "Travis, why are you home?" she asked quickly, closing the bedroom door behind her. I explained the situation, trying to sound optimistic. "It is just a temporary setback. The tech market is strong, and I will find something better." I expected comfort, a hug, reassurance that we would get through this together. Instead, Amanda's expression hardened in a way I had never seen before. "How could you let this happen?" she asked coldly. "Did you not see the signs? Could you not have tried harder to save your position?" Her questions felt like slaps. I tried explaining that the layoffs were company-wide and not performance-based, but she cut me off. "We were going to buy a house, Travis. We were planning our future." "What about that now?" That night, Amanda slept in the guest room for the first time in our marriage. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the reality of my situation sinking in. Around midnight, I called Jason, my friend from college, who always gave straight advice. "Give her time," Jason said after I explained everything. "This is a shock for both of you. Focus on landing a new position quickly. Things will go back to normal once you are employed again." I nodded to myself in the darkness, clinging to his reassurance like a lifeline. The next morning, I was up early, updating my resume and LinkedIn profile. I applied to 15 positions before noon. The job market seemed promising at first glance, with plenty of software engineer roles listed. My phone rang with a recruiter by afternoon. "Your background is impressive," she said, "but the hiring manager is specifically looking for experience in Ruby and AWS deployment. Your Java skills are not quite what they need." This became a pattern. Not the right fit. Looking for more experience in X technology. Moving forward with candidates whose background aligns more closely with our needs. After 2 weeks of rejections, my confidence began to crack. Still, I maintained a routine. Wake early. Apply for jobs. Take online tutorials to learn in-demand skills. Cook dinner for Amanda. I was determined to show her I was actively working to resolve our situation. But Amanda's attitude only worsened. She started coming home later, often smelling of wine and perfume. When I asked about her day, her answers were clipped and vague. The wall between us grew taller with each passing day. 3 weeks after losing my job, I overheard a conversation that changed everything. Amanda was in our bedroom, with the door slightly ajar, talking on the phone. She thought I had gone out for a job interview, but it had been canceled last minute. "I do not know how much longer I can do this, Stephanie," she said, her voice low but clear. "Living with him is depressing. He spends all day on the computer sending out applications that go nowhere." A pause as Stephanie responded. "Exactly. He is not a man anymore." Amanda continued, each word driving into my heart like a nail. "No job, no confidence, moping around the apartment. I am starting to resent coming home." I stood frozen in the hallway, unable to move or breathe. Between us, Amanda's voice dropped even lower. "Michael has been so supportive during all this. He keeps saying I deserve better." Michael, her boss at the design studio, the one who called and texted at all hours for work emergencies. I retreated silently to the living room, mind racing. That night, I tried one last effort to reconnect, cooking Amanda's favorite meal, salmon with roasted vegetables and that expensive Pinot Noir she loved. I set the table with candles, desperately trying to recreate the atmosphere from happier times. When she arrived home, she looked at the setup and sighed. I already ate with the team. Michael took us to that new place downtown to celebrate landing the Richardson account. "You could have called," I said quietly. She shrugged. "I did not think it mattered. It is not like you had anywhere to be." The casual cruelty stunned me into silence. As I wrapped the untouched food in foil, I noticed Amanda texting rapidly, a small smile playing on her lips. I did not need to see the screen to know who it was. The following weekend, Amanda insisted we attend a dinner party hosted by her friend Stephanie. I dreaded it, but she argued we needed to maintain social connections. What she meant, I realized later, was that she needed to maintain her social status. The modern apartment was filled with successful couples in designer clothes, sipping expensive wine. I felt immediately out of place in my one good shirt that now hung loosely on my frame after weeks of stress-induced weight loss. "Travis, Amanda tells us you are between opportunities right now," Stephanie's husband Brad announced loudly, swirling his scotch. "Tough break, man. Tech industry is brutal." Eyes turned to me. I felt like an animal in a zoo exhibit. "I am exploring options," I replied, trying to sound confident, actually considering a few different directions. He has been on the couch exploring Netflix options. Amanda cut in with a sharp laugh that others uncomfortably joined. 3 weeks and counting. I excused myself to get water lingering in Stephanie's kitchen longer than necessary. When I returned toward the living room, I heard Amanda's voice from the hallway where she stood with Stephanie and another woman. "I will give him a month before I leave his broke ass," Amanda stated matter-of-factly. "I did not sign up to support a grown man who cannot keep a job." "What about your vows?" the other woman asked. "For richer or poorer, right?" "Please," Amanda scoffed. "I married Travis when he was making 6 figures with stock options. That was the deal. I am not playing nurse to his wounded ego while my life stalls." I silently backed away and left the party without saying goodbye to anyone. I walked 10 blocks in the cold Seattle rain before calling a Lyft, my mind strangely calm, despite the storm raging inside. At home, I checked our joint bank account. The $20,000 we had saved for a house down payment had dwindled to $12,000 after 2 months of me not working. At this rate, with rent, car payments, and Amanda's shopping habits, we would be broke in 3 more months. That night, Amanda did not come home. Her text simply read, "Staying at Stephanie's. Too drunk to drive." But Instagram told a different story, with Stephanie posting photos from a bar where Amanda sat close to a tall man whose arm was conveniently cropped from the frame. I recognized Michael's watch. The next morning, I found one of his business cards in Amanda's coat pocket. On the back, written in her handwriting, "Dinner Friday. My place or yours." The date was 2 weeks earlier, when I was still employed. This was not just about the job loss. It had never been about that. Sleep became impossible. Dark circles formed under my eyes. My phone remained silent despite dozens of applications. One night, desperate for support and running out of options, I made a decision I would soon regret. I drove the 2 hours to my parents' suburban home, the place where I grew up learning that men should be strong providers. The modest 2-story house looked exactly as it always had, with Mom's carefully tended flower beds and Dad's immaculate lawn. Standing on the porch, I was flooded with childhood memories. Playing catch with Dad in the backyard, Mom teaching me to bake cookies at Christmas, family dinners where they proudly asked about my latest achievements at school. The weight of potential disappointment made my hand hesitate before ringing the doorbell. Mom answered, surprise registering on her face. "Travis, we were not expecting you." Her hug was brief, less warm than I remembered. Dad called from his recliner, not getting up. "That the boy? What brings you here unannounced?" The house smelled of pot roast, Mom's Sunday specialty. My stomach growled, reminding me I had barely eaten in days. "I just thought I would visit," I said casually, following Mom to the kitchen. It has been a while. Dinner was strained. My parents asked about work, and I gave vague answers about transitions and exploring new opportunities. Dad talked about his golf game. Mom discussed church committee drama. No one mentioned the elephant in the room, my gaunt appearance and the shadows behind my eyes. After dinner, Dad turned on the football game while Mom cleared dishes. I offered to help, hoping for a private moment with her. "Mom," I started quietly as we loaded the dishwasher, "things are not great right now." She glanced toward the living room where, "Dad, Saturday." "What do you mean, dear?" "I lost my job a month ago. Layoffs. And Amanda." My voice caught. "Amanda is not handling it well." Mom's hands stilled on the plates. "Oh, Travis, not sympathy, but something else. Disappointment. I need help." I admitted the words, painful to speak. "Just temporarily. Alone, maybe, until I get back on my feet." She called Dad into the kitchen. "You lost your job," Dad's voice boomed as he entered, making me flinch. "When were you planning to tell us? Or were we just supposed to find out when you came begging for money?" William, Mom cautioned, but her expression matched his disapproval. It is not like that. I tried explaining. The entire department was cut. It had nothing to do with my performance. Excuses, Dad snorted, crossing his arms. When I was your age, I would have found another job immediately. I would have worked construction, delivered pizzas, anything, rather than ask for handouts. I have been trying. I insisted, feeling like a teenager again. The market is different now. Companies take weeks just to review applications. And what does Amanda think of all this? Mom asked quietly. I hesitated too long. She is leaving you, is not she? Dad shook his head. Cannot blame her. Women want security, Travis. They want a man who can provide. The words stung because they echoed Amanda's betrayal. I just need a little help to get through this rough patch, I said, hating the pleading tone in my voice. $6,000 would cover expenses while I keep job hunting. I will pay it back with interest. Dad looked at me with contempt I had never seen before. A real man would not beg his parents for money at 35 years old. We do not have that kind of cash just sitting around, Mom added, though I knew they did. They had bragged about their savings at Christmas. But your retirement accounts, I started, are for retirement, Dad cut in sharply. Not for bailing out our adult son who cannot keep a job or a wife. You made your bed in Seattle with your fancy tech career. Now lie in it. Mom just shook her head, unable to look at me. In that moment, something broke inside me, and something else, something stronger, took its place. I looked at these people, my parents by biology, but strangers in every way that mattered, and realized I owed them nothing. I smiled, a genuine smile that confused them. Thank you for dinner, I said calmly, standing up. And for the clarity. Travis, wait. Mom called as I walked to the door. I turned back one last time. I came here thinking family meant supporting each other through hard times. My mistake. The drive back to Seattle was strangely peaceful. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. When I arrived home, Amanda's suitcase stood packed by the door. She emerged from the bedroom, surprised to see me. I thought you were staying at your parents', she said flatly. Decided against it, I replied, oddly calm. Going somewhere, I am. Staying with Stephanie for a while. The lie came easily to her. I need space to think about us. About us, I laughed softly. There is no us, Amanda. There probably never was. Her eyes widened. This was not the desperate reaction she had expected. What are you talking about? I held up my phone, showing the text messages I had found between her and Michael. Plans made weeks ago. Hotel reservations. Intimate photos. You did not even wait until I was out of work to start cheating. I said without anger, just stating facts. This was never about the job loss. That was just your convenient exit ramp. You went through my phone, she sputtered, outrage replacing guilt. No. You left your cloud backup connected to our shared tablet. Rookie mistake. The argument that followed was surprisingly brief. She denied, then deflected, then blamed me. The classic cheater's playbook. But I was beyond hurt now. I was simply done. That night I did not sleep. Instead, I assessed every aspect of my life with cold clarity. The job I had lost had been slowly crushing my soul anyway. The wife I had loved had never really seen me, just my paycheck and status. The parents who raised me had placed conditions on their love that no child should have to meet. By dawn, I had made my decision. I packed one suitcase with essential clothes, my laptop, and a few personal items. I withdrew the remaining $3,200 from our joint account before Amanda could drain it. I left her a note. The rest is yours, along with the apartment and the lies you tell yourself. I deserve better. I called Jason, who had moved to San Francisco last year. Can I crash on your couch for a week or two? I need a fresh start. Dude, absolutely, he said without hesitation. My place is small, but you are always welcome. I boarded a one-way flight to San Francisco that afternoon. As the plane lifted off, I felt the weight of expectations and disappointments fall away. For the first time in months, I could breathe. Jason's small place was indeed tiny, a one-bedroom apartment in the Mission District with barely enough space for his things, let alone a house guest. But it was clean, and his welcome was genuine. "Stay as long as you need," he insisted, clearing a corner of his living room. "The couch pulls out. Not comfortable, but it will work until you get settled." Within 3 days, I had secured 2 jobs. Mornings as a barista, at a local coffee shop, evenings, delivering food for an app-based service. Neither used my engineering skills, but both paid cash and required no resume or references. Between shifts, I hunted for affordable housing in one of America's most expensive cities. "You could try Oakland," Jason suggested. "Cheaper across the bay and the commute is not terrible." I found a room for rent in a house with 4 roommates. It was a far cry from my Seattle apartment, with its water views and designer furniture. But the $600 monthly rent fit my new budget. My new roommates were all younger students or artists or gig workers, but welcoming and drama-free. The coffee shop job proved unexpectedly valuable. One regular customer, Mark, came in daily for an Americano and often stayed to work on his laptop. After serving him for 2 weeks, I finally asked what he did. "Freelance software development," he replied. "Mostly blockchain projects right now." I mentioned my background, careful not to sound desperate. I was in software engineering before. A career change. Mark looked interested. "What languages?" "Java, Python, some C++. I was learning Solidity before I left my last position." The next day, Mark brought a colleague. They questioned me about my experience while I made their drinks. By the end of the week, Mark made an offer. "We are building something new. Early stage, high risk, but potentially huge. We cannot pay much now, but we can offer equity and experience in emerging tech." Interested, the startup operated from a converted warehouse space where a dozen developers worked long hours fueled by passion and caffeine. I kept my barista job for steady income, but spent evenings and weekends coding with Mark's team. For 6 months, I worked 70-hour weeks for effectively no salary, just the promise of future returns. During that time, I received 3 increasingly desperate emails from Amanda. The first demanded I return to work things out. The second threatened legal action for abandonment. The third, sent after I filed for divorce citing infidelity with evidence attached, simply asked where it all went wrong. I answered none of them. My parents called once, leaving a voicemail about how I had abandoned my responsibilities. I blocked their number. 6 months into our project, everything changed. A venture capital firm took interest in our blockchain payment platform. After weeks of tense meetings and due diligence, they invested $1 million. Suddenly, I had a real salary again, as chief technology officer plus equity, potentially worth much more. The company grew rapidly. 1 million became 10 million in our next funding round. Our team expanded from 12 to 50 within a year. I moved from my shared housing to a 1-bedroom apartment of my own, then to a larger 2-bedroom with a home office. By year 3, we had offices in San Francisco and Singapore, with over 200 employees. Throughout this growth, I maintained a simple lifestyle. My painful experience had taught me that material success was fragile and far less important than authentic connections. I made real friends, people who knew my story and liked me for who I was, not what I earned or represented. In my 4th year in San Francisco, I met Sarah at a volunteer event building homes for low-income families. She was a pediatrician who spent her vacation time on humanitarian missions. Our connection was immediate and based on shared values. When I told her my full story one night, she held my hand and said simply, "Their loss was your liberation." We moved in together after a year. No grand gestures or materialistic displays, just 2 people building a life on mutual respect and genuine love. For the first time, I understood what a healthy relationship felt like. By the 6th anniversary of my departure from Seattle, our company went public. My equity stake was valued at $8 million overnight. The scared broke man who had fled with one suitcase and $3,000 was now financially secure for life. With Sarah's encouragement, I purchased a beautiful home in Pacific Heights, one of San Francisco's most prestigious neighborhoods. Not to show off, but to create a sanctuary where we could potentially raise a family one day. The irony of achieving far more success after losing everything was not lost on me. On a sunny Saturday morning, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Sarah was at the hospital for an emergency, so I answered alone. 3 people stood on my doorstep, Amanda looking older and worn around the eyes, and my parents' noticeably aged dad's confident posture, replaced with a slight stoop. Mom's hair now completely gray. Travis Amanda spoke first, her voice catching. "You are hard to find." I said nothing, just looked at them questioningly. "May we come in?" Dad asked, his formerly commanding voice now uncertain. Why, I asked, simply. "We need to talk to you, Mom," said, eyes darting to take in the expensive neighborhood, the luxury car in the driveway. "We have been trying to reach you," Amanda added, calling, emailing, even hiring a private investigator. I leaned against the door frame. I changed my number and email years ago, for obvious reasons. Dad started, then corrected himself. "Travis, we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes." Their story emerged in halting pieces as they stood on my porch. Amanda's affair with Michael had ended badly. He had been married the entire time, never intending to leave his wife. Her design career collapsed after a client sued her for breach of contract during her personal difficulties. She had been working retail for the past 3 years, barely making ends meet. My parents had invested their retirement savings in a friend's business that went bankrupt. The house I grew up in was now in foreclosure. They had nowhere to go. "We found you through business news," Dad explained. "Your company's IPO made headlines. We are so proud of what you have accomplished." The pride came 6 years too late. "What do you want from me?" I asked, though I already knew. "We need help." Amanda admitted, tears forming. "Just temporarily. Alone until we get back on our feet. Like the help you gave me when I needed it." The words were not bitter, just factual. They looked at their shoes, unable to meet my gaze. I surprised myself with what I did next. I invited them in, offered coffee, and listened to their full stories, not from obligation, but to fully close this chapter of my life. "I can pay for a hotel for a week," I told them finally, "and provide enough cash for basic needs while you figure out your next steps." "Could we stay here instead?" Mom asked, looking around at the spacious home. "Just until we find jobs and an apartment." "No," I said gently but firmly. "Our relationship ended 6 years ago when you all showed me who you really were. I have built a new life with people who value me for more than what I can provide." "We can change," Amanda insisted. "We know we were wrong." I shook my head. "You only came looking when you needed something." That says everything. I gave them the promised hotel information and cash. As they reluctantly prepared to leave, Dad turned back. "What was the secret, Travis? How did you do all this after hitting rock bottom?" I considered the question. I stopped measuring my worth by other people's expectations. The moment I walked away from toxic relationships was the moment I found my true path. After they left, I sat in my sunny kitchen feeling not satisfaction or vindication but peace. The scared man who fled Seattle no longer existed. In his place stood someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more authentic. Sarah came home that evening to find me cooking dinner, music playing softly. "Good day," she asked, kissing my cheek. "Enlightening," I replied. I finally understood something important. "What is that?" That losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me. It showed me who truly matters and what really counts. Later, as we sat on our terrace watching the Golden Gate Bridge shimmer in the distance, I realized the full circle nature of my journey. I had lost a job, a wife, and parents in the space of months. But in finding myself, I had gained a purposeful career, a loving partner, and a life built on authenticity rather than appearances. The greatest lesson from my darkest days was simple sometimes. The things we fight hardest to keep are the very things holding us back from who we are meant to become. True strength is not found in never falling, but in rising from the fall, fundamentally changed for the better. What about you? Have you ever had to walk away from something comfortable to find something authentic? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes your greatest setback is actually setting you up for your comeback.